All right. Hello, everybody out there in social media world. My name's Adam White, and it is time for the December 2023 Government and Legislative Affairs update. And we're ready to go on Instagram and Facebook. Just reset, so it looks like we are ready to go there as well. So, going to give folks a little bit of time to get logged in and ready to go here. I do have several things I want to talk about with you this evening, and it looks like, yep, there we go. We're pausing just a bit here and there, and so the modern technology is maybe struggling just a little bit for us this evening. But anyway, we're going to keep going here. One thing that's really big and important, I want to make sure, I'm going to go ahead and make sure I write this down because it is pretty big and important, that scholarships start January 1st is when the scholarship application period opens up for the Alaska Airmen's Association, and we gave away a lot of money last year in the tune of $120,000, somewhere in that ballpark, for scholarships last year for aviation-related activities, whether it's flight training, whether it's maintenance training, whether it's dispatch, or anything involved, management, anything like that having to do with aviation. The Alaska Airmen's Association wants to help you be prepared to enter into that marketplace. Workforce development is a big component of what the Alaska Airmen's Association does. So just a quick plug for that program. Application period opens up January 1st and goes through January and February and into March. And so go to our website, alaskaairmen.org, and find out some more about that. The other thing that's important to make sure that I let you all know about is the raffle plane. You may have seen today there was a live stream event there at Dan Cheney Aero going over some of the things about this year's raffle cub. And tickets are available now if you are interested in purchasing a ticket for a stocking stuffer for a friend or relative, or even yourself. So those ticket sales are online as well. You can go to our website and go look at that. So one thing I want to start off with is we just got the paperwork today. The Alaska Airmen's Association has joined in with AOPA and EAA with a Friends of the Court brief in support of Trent Palmer and his appeal process. This is a big deal for us here in Alaska because the FAA has kind of set a dangerous precedent, and I shouldn't say kind of. They've come right out and set a dangerous precedent with their case about that. And so Alaska Airmen's Association wanting to make sure that we are making sure that things are handled correctly, things are done in a way that we do have an opportunity to appeal, and if that appeal is denied, that we can continue to work through that process. And we feel that Trent Palmer was not, that case was not handled appropriately. And so we have filed a Friends of the Court, an amicus brief, essentially, in conjunction with AOPA and EAA in support of Trent Palmer's appeal. So I wanted to make sure folks were aware of that. That is a long, ongoing process, and it is not going to be over anytime soon. But I'll keep you up to date when I know more and we find out more details. So wanted to start off with that because that's kind of big news, as we make sure that we do what we can to make sure that we can continue to operate the way that we do here in Alaska. And of course that is safely, but we need the ability to be able to come in and inspect our landing sites. So, that got a question here. Was that Trent Palmer who crashed the airplane on purpose? Nope, that was not that case. And so we're not involved with that one, even though a lot of crazy stuff happened with that case. Kind of makes you scratch your head a little bit. So anyway, Trent Palmer's case was, the FAA decided that he got too close to persons and property as he was inspecting a potential landing site, and the FAA came after him for that. We know that inspecting a landing site is something that's very commonplace for us here in Alaska, and we do that all the time because it's much better to look at it and say, nope, not going to do that, and go on, than to now feel the pressure about about coming in and looking at that and saying, yeah, I don't know if I'm going to do this or not. I'm going to have to come in and land, and then all of a sudden it's a bad case. So again, still got some people coming up asking questions. Hopefully that explains enough about that case that you understand what it is that we have decided to sign on to as a friend of the court, and specifically dealing with the appeal process and actually the way the NTSB and the FAA handle that. It's very frustrating, actually, to have due process and chain of, anyway, I don't want to get into all of it right here on social media. I am not an attorney. We have attorneys that are working on that with us to make sure that that's done in a way that hopefully will have a good outcome. So the next big thing I want to talk about is 100 low lead. Now I know we're all going, yeah, 100 low lead, 100 low lead. Well, if you haven't seen already, I did a deep dive into this issue. It's an hour and 39 minutes, plus or minus. Pretty detailed, actually, about some of the issues about 100 low lead and the change to an unleaded fuel and what that potentially could mean for Alaska. I talked to Ross at St. John with Crowley Fuels. Crowley is a significant player in 100 low lead here in the state of Alaska, aviation fuel in general, petroleum distribution, and all of that. They are very much a part of. The other part of that deep dive was with Kurt Hartwig with Eagle Fuel Cell, and talking with him about some of the other components and parts of the fuel system that, just because your engine might run doesn't necessarily mean that the alternative fuel is going to be viable for us in the long run. So the first part of that hour and 39 minutes is a conversation that I had with Abby Austin, our executive director, where we're going through just some of the overall broad general questions and issues of how a fuel replacement would look here in Alaska. So it's on our YouTube channel. Go to alaskaairmen.org, and it's posted all over our website and links to it there. And so I encourage you to go and look at that. So let's see, just checking things off my list here. Okay, something else to remind you of. The rudder AD for a lot of the Cub type Pipers, and I say it that way because it's kind of a broad spectrum of aircraft that this proposed AD would cover. There was a comment period that has been extended, and it's been extended because the FAA needed to get some more information out there because of a lot of people were asking for stuff that they had not originally included in that docket. And so that comment period for that AD extends now to February 20th. I've been in a conversation with a lot of different organizations in the lower 48 that are asking, okay, what does this mean for Alaska? What is this going to do? What does this really look like fleet-wide? How is this going to impact things? Well, so here's my concern. I am not a structural engineer. I did get quite a bit of engineering training in college, but I am not an engineer. And so what the issue here is dealing with older metallurgy and aircraft that it appears seems to be prone to failure above the hinge point for rudders on Cub type airframes that have a beacon installed. Actually, all the documented failures so far have been on aircraft with beacons on them, and that extra weight up top may be influencing some of that. There hasn't been any reported cases of a 4130 chromoly rudder, but that doesn't mean that that's not going to be an issue there either. So anyway, a lot of things involved with that AD. Yes, it will impact Alaska. We have a lot of Cub type aircraft up here, and if that AD comes through as it is, it's going to be a big deal. And I know that there's one manufacturer that builds aftermarket parts that are FAA PMA approved that is gearing up production, anticipating a big sale of those rudders and for the replacement for that AD. One of the other issues with the AD that I think is important that people know and understand is there's not an alternate method of compliance. And there's a lot of folks out there in the industry that seem to think that, if you just put a sleeve inside of the existing rudder, you'll be fine. Other folks are saying that you can modify and do some other things, and that would help and might prolong the life of that potential rudder with a problem. So if you have a Cub type aircraft and this AD might affect you, I encourage you to go and look for that AD. Just type in Cub rudder AD and it'll pop up. There's a lot of people talking about this out there on the internet. And just want to remind you that excuse me, that comment period has been extended to February 20th now. And so there's more opportunity for you to be able to get your comments in for that. So working on down the list a little bit further, I got some exciting news today. Confirmation. I knew this happened because of a meeting I was in last week, but I confirmed today with Flight Service that if you have a Garmin inReach, which actually just over here in my backpack that I carry around with me everywhere I go, I carry my inReach all the time. Now, this tells you how long I've been carrying an inReach because this is the old version. They don't make this particular version anymore. So that gives you an indication as to how long I've carried an inReach. But inReach devices are now eligible for the Alaska Flight Service two-way texting program. This is big news. We've been able to use the Garmin inReach with the ESRS, the Enhanced Special Reporting Service, which basically means Flight Service is now part of getting a notification if you hit the SOS button on your satellite communicator, and inReach was one of those participating devices. There's now the ability to two-way text with Flight Service, and the inReach has been a problem until now. It has been added to the program. We can now use our Garmin inReach to two-way text with Flight Service. However, the program is still limited to being able to open, close, or amend a flight plan. You will not be able to ask for a weather briefing over your inReach or any of your other approved devices. And you will not be able to file a new flight plan with these devices just yet. There is hope and there's plans that the FAA, the Alaska Flight Service, is wanting to expand the scope of this program. But as we know, anything with the federal government is a slow, methodical pace. And this was a major, major win for us because the Garmin inReach has such a huge market share here in the state of Alaska. So if you're interested in adding your Garmin inReach to the ability to be able to text two-way back and forth with Alaska Flight Service, you need to call either the Fairbanks, Juneau, or Kenai Flight Service stations and ask the specialists there about how you do that. They are supposedly been briefed and up to speed on doing that. I've been told that here shortly the FAA has been working on getting their website updated to reflect this new thing. But I asked very specifically today if I could mention this tonight, and they said, please, by all means, we are ready to go. Please let everybody know. So, great news, just in time for Christmas. You can now use your Garmin inReach device to two-way text with Flight Service to open, close, or amend a flight plan. So, big news. That's huge. I've been able to do that just with cell phone when I've been in range of cell coverage. The Spot X device is available to do that, and a couple of other devices are as well. It actually is pretty cool to be able to do that in a remote site where you don't necessarily have the ability to call Flight Service, and that's what we'll be able to do now with our inReach devices. All right, so working on down the list, because again, I don't want to keep everybody too long here. Going back to 100 low lead, just want to remind folks that process is still ongoing and underway. You may have read in the media that our senators, Senator Murkowski and Senator Sullivan, are kind of pushing back on the 100 low lead swap out here for Alaska. Not necessarily trying to stop it completely, but saying, hey, wait a minute, we have some logistical issues here in Alaska that we really need to make sure are addressed before we just go all in with this. And so that was a good thing to see on their part, that they are kind of waving the flag that Alaska is not going to be able to do a switch as easily as the rest of the United States. You may have heard that one of the candidates going through the PAFI process, which is basically the FAA certification process, which is different than the STC process that the GAMI product went through, but VP Racing has cleared a big hurdle in their testing phase to where now they can go out and do some bigger fleet-wide testing long-term testing instead of now. They have moved out of the laboratory and they are now into the real world with their potential replacement for 100 low lead. So that's some good news that they're working on that. All right, so other thing I want to briefly mention here, I know a lot of our members and a lot of folks that look to the Alaska Airmen's Association for information will fly through Canada coming to or from Alaska in their personal aircraft. And the question of ADS-B equipage continues to come up, and Canada is working through their process of an ADS-B mandate. They have mandated Class A airspace, that's above flight level 180, to be ADS-B out equipped on the 1090 extended squitter because they went all satellite base. They've had a little bit of difficulty with that implementation. There's some talk right now of actually delaying the Class B mandate, and so we'll see how that plays out, but that may be delayed because they're trying to figure out how to clean up everything that happened with the Class A mandate. Along this process, the Class C, D, and E deadline, which is what would affect most of our membership and people like us that fly back and forth through Canada with our own aircraft. The Class C, the Charlie, Delta, and Echo airspaces, that deadline has now been pushed to 2028. And so that's good news while we kind of figure out a little bit more about what this mandate's going to really mean in the real world, because Canada is talking about a top and bottom diversity system, top and bottom antenna in order to be in compliance. They've kind of backed off of that language of saying 2 antennas. Now they're saying if you can get proper coverage, then that's all they care about is that. But there has been some questions actually between Transport Canada and NAV Canada as to who's really running the show here when it comes to equipage and what kind of standards are we actually shooting for. So that's kind of an update on that issue. All right, speaking of airspaces, this is a big one, and this one just was not on my list because it is kind of actually very current. ATAPS, the Anchorage Bowl Study, the Anchorage Airspace Redesign, goes by a lot of different names outside of FA circles. That process is slowly progressing. Now you'll remember I've talked about this several times before. All this has started because the Air Force is wanting an ILS into their north-south runway, actually their runway 16, so not truly north and south, but close enough. Though they wanted to have a ILS approach. Now that's going to mess with the airspace. They had to figure out if it was going to be worth it. Of course, they said that it would be worth it because you can just keep throwing money and basically make anything happen. And so now they're going back and looking to see what is it going to take to do this. They have been working through the standard arrival and departure procedures in and out of the Anchorage Bowl for instrument aircraft coming and going. Now they're looking at some of the individual approaches to see how this is all going to interact. Missed approach procedures are kind of the big sticking point right now for that new ILS into Elmendorf Air Force Base. I will tell you, the good news that I've got is that Class B airspace has been taken off the table. Now you may think, I didn't even know that was an option, Adam. Oh my word, what happened there? Well, so in order to be a full-on complete process, that conversation needed to happen. Folks needed to actually put it on the table, work through the process, and say, yeah, we don't need to do that yet. Anchorage does have the traffic count of the right kind of aircraft to qualify for Class B airspace to meet that criteria. But there's more than just that criteria. There's the number of enplanements, the number of passengers that get on and off airplanes in the Anchorage area. And my understanding is that it barely meets the halfway threshold of that. So Class B airspace is off the table. That's good news for us because Class B airspace would be very problematic for special VFR, for ADS-B equipage, two primarily things those would be big issues for. Now, the Class Charlie airspace that exists today is probably going to expand a little bit. Not sure exactly where just yet. That process is still ongoing. The Part 93 airspace that we use to come and go for our VFR procedures in and out of Merrill and Hood, those potentially could change as well. I'm hoping we can simplify some of those things. Don't know that for sure. This is a very long process, still a couple, 3 years out before we're completed with this. I've been involved in meetings. There's been a series of 3-day, full-on 8 hours a day, 3 days worth of meetings that's happened every month the past couple of months. There's another series of them in January that I'll be attending. And so we're a long ways from being done. And I promise you, when the time is appropriate, when the FAA is willing to accept public comment, I will let you know about it, and I will let you know about what specifically they are asking for comments on. We are not at that stage right now. We will be eventually, but not right now. And just want to remind you that the Class B alternative has been taken off the table. That's very good news. Very, very good news. So, one more thing before we wrap things up, because we're kind of pushing our time here. The FAA is still in the midst of trying to figure out if they're going to be reauthorized or not to continue to operate. Funding is still an issue with the federal budget. All that's kind of back and forth. Holiday break has already started. Senate's still doing some things. Anyway, nobody really knows. That's the short answer. But funding will eventually show up. The FAA will continue to operate to whatever ability they're able to legally. The safety of life aspects of the FAA will continue regardless of funding. So we might see some more difficulty getting things accomplished with working with the FAA if this government shutdown reauthorization doesn't happen, all that kind of stuff. So I'm on it. I'm tracking that stuff. I'm talking to the FAA all the time, trying to figure out what we can do to help kind of smooth things out through that process if possible. So that's all I'm going to talk about with you this month. Want to again push the 100 low lead deep dive that I did on YouTube. We were just sitting around talking. The audio is not necessarily the greatest. The video editing is not great. I'm not a YouTuber. I don't have fancy cameras and all that kind of stuff. But it's a good conversation, and I encourage you to go look for that on our YouTube channel, Alaska Airmen's on YouTube, and our website, alaskaairmen.org. Don't forget to buy your raffle tickets, and don't forget to start spreading the word about the scholarship application period that opens January 1. So with that, I'll say good night, and we'll talk to you later.